was 75, I was watching the ABC News and they interviewed a woman of 92, and of course, when I was 75, I thought that was a ripe old age, and little dreaming I'd get past it. And she swam. She was a very good swimmer, had been a champion diver. And anyway, I was very impressed with this woman because at 92 she was still a bushwalker, and she rode a horse every day, so I think she must have lived in the country. Anyway, I was inspired and I thought, oh, I'd have to do something. I was a bushwalker, but that was all I ever did. I didn't play sport. Hadn't been into the sea, although I lived there, from when my children were youngsters, when they had to have me. You know, I taught them to swim, and once they were old enough to go on their own, I never went near the water. So it was, it could be 25 or more years since I'd been swimming, because I had never been to a pool. Anyway, I made up my mind I was going to go swimming the next morning at the local pool. It took me about an hour to find these antiquated togs. But anyway, I thought, I don't care what I look like, I'm going. So I went early in the next morning, about 6 o'clock, and I was so full of enthusiasm. I'm just going like an Olympian up the doing a lap, and I got about 2/3 of the way up, and I thought, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I just felt I was going to have a heart attack. And I grabbed hold of the side, and a couple of women came along and they said, are you all right? And I said, no, I'm not. So they helped me out of the water, and very disappointedly I went home. Anyway, I felt a lot better after lunch, so I thought I'll go down and buy new togs, and I'm going again in the morning. So the next morning I went, and I went much slower at it, and I did one lap, the 25-metre pool, and I stayed and did exercises then. And anyway, from then on, I was going 3 times a week, and by 3 months I was doing 50 laps. And I did that 50 laps till I was about 80, and I developed heart trouble. And but I still went swimming, and but at 82 I had to have a quadruple bypass. And anyway, after that, one day a gentleman approached me as I came out of the water, and he said to me, do you belong to the Masters swimming? And I said, oh no, I'm too old. By this stage I was 84, that's right. I'd gone back to swimming after the operation, but I could only do 32, which is 800 metres. Could never do 50. Anyway, he said, I've been watching you, and he said, I think you should belong to a club. And I said, oh, anyway, look, I've got to have a hip replacement. So I said I wouldn't dream of joining a club until I was completely over that. And so anyway, he kept ringing me up until when I was 86, I joined. And the day I went, he greeted me. I didn't know a soul. It was over in Dandenong. And he came up to me and he said, oh, the Australian Championships this year are in Victoria. And he said, and I've entered you in the 50, the 100, the 200, the 400 and the 800. And I literally dropped in my tracks. I thought, how dare he do this? You know, and it was only about a month off. And of course I got very cross with him. I said, look, you had no right to do that. I said, I've never been in a race in my life. And he said, I know what I'm doing. So anyway, I went in them and broke all the records, whole 5. That was in backstroke only. And I couldn't believe it. And of course I brought down one of my, I can't remember now, I think it was the 800. I broke my own record the next year, and belonged to the club and won a lot of medals until I was 86 then, when I first went in a race. And at 89, when I turned 89 in the February, I thought, oh, I've had enough of this. So I retired. And anyway, when I turned 90, the phone rang and the gentleman's on the phone again. He said, are you swimming down there at Frankston? I said, yes. Still doing 32 laps? I said, yes. He said, well, you'd better come back. He said, you go into a different category. He said, you were in the 84 to 80. Hey, wait a minute, let's think, 80, I can't remember, but I went up into the next category. Oh, that's right, I was in the 85 to 89. And now when I turned 90, when he rang me, I was in the 90 to 94. And I said, oh, I'm too old. No, he said, you've got to come back, which I did. And I broke all the backstroke. I broke the 3 first, the 100, the 50, 100 and 200, but nobody, which amazed me, in Australia had ever, in that bracket, had never swum in the 400 and 800. So I set the record for those too. So I got the 5 Australian records again at that age. And then when I was 93, I was in here, in the hostel. I came into the hostel when I was 92. And in 93, the World Games were in Australia. And I had never been to World Games. And in fact, they were in Australia. I went to those, and I got 2 seconds and a third, I was very proud of. And then I gave it away. That was the finished. Until the club that I used to belong to at Dandenong got in touch with me and asked me, would I partake in that? Did you see it on TV at all? You know, it was in the news a lot about the 4 of us breaking. They wanted somebody else to. It had to add up to 360, an average of 90 years, the lot of us, 360 years. And I said, but I'm not a member now. They said, you don't have to worry about that, we'll fix all of that. And so I went in that.
Wow.
And just 1 week before, on the Sunday, I developed pneumonia on the Sunday, and the race was the following Saturday night. Oh dear, I was very upset. But being a very fit lady, I got over it very quickly. I was in hospital, but then I got over it, but I wasn't allowed out anywhere or allowed near a pool or anything like that. So I wasn't really at my best in 7 days, I can assure you, but I just did the best I could, which wasn't a good time at all. But anyway, we set the record, that's the main thing. I didn't let the girls down.
What advice would you give to older people to think young?
You've got to keep active. That's the secret of it. You've got to keep active and look after yourself, not only physically but mentally as well. I do crossword puzzles, and I don't always get them out. I do sometimes, but we have word quiz here, which I love, and I play cards once a week, and I play Scrabble once a week to keep my mind occupied. Yes, so I advise people to, and walk a lot. I walk a lot, although I'm in a lot of pain because I had my hip operation many years ago, but they both need doing. That one needs doing again, and that one wants doing for the first time. And they're very painful because they're getting worse as the years go by, but I'm too old to have the operation at 97, so I've just got to endure the pain, but I still walk every day and keep moving, otherwise if you don't use it, you lose it, and it's so true.
If you could turn back time, what advice would you tell your younger self?
I wish I'd have taken up swimming years before. As I say, I knew how to swim, but I probably wouldn't have swum more than 20 yards in my life, or 20 metres as they are today. You know what I mean? But once I took it up on a regular basis, when I first started, 3 days a week, I still never went to the sea. My life changed. I felt better in health. Do you know, prior to taking up swimming, I used to get colds every winter. Not just one, I'd have 2 or 3. I'd get the flu every winter. And after I'd been swimming, I took it up in the winter, strangely enough, and after I'd been swimming about a month, I thought, oh, you haven't had a cold. And I've never had one since, and never had the flu. And I don't take in flu injections. So that's for over, 22 years I'd been free of colds and flu.
Wow.
That's remarkable. And swimming it must have built me up, the respiratory tract, and I don't have that problem now every winter.